Hello and welcome to the big story here on the BDTV Breakfast Show. This is where we get to discuss key issues shaping our nation and our economy at large. My name is Elizabeth Musa. Today we're focusing on policies and solutions that can be put in place to build a climate resilient city and nation. Nigeria's national policy on the environment, which was revised in 2016, is aimed at ensuring that environmental protection and the conservation of natural resources for sustainable development. The policy objectives, among others, include securing a quality environment for good health and well-being, promoting sustainable use of natural resources, and the maintenance of the biological diversity, among others. While individual states may have enacted laws and formulated policies to address peculiar challenges within their government, the goals and objectives, however, remain largely the same, that of protecting the environment and ensuring the well-being of the people. Today, we are asking questions on how well these policies are being implemented to achieve the objectives and what level of collaborations are going on between the federal, states, and even the private sector, and to make this a reality. To address this and so much more, we're being joined by Mr. Oresanya, the Honorable Commissioner for Environment in Ogun State, and a former managing director of Lagos Waste Management Authority, LOMA. He is recognized as an authority in waste management and environmental development in Africa. Welcome to the show, Honorable Commissioner.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely, it's a delight to have you this morning. Let me start by asking you this, Honorable Commissioner. So, climate change has become a major global challenge with impact being felt in agriculture, food production, rising water levels, weather uncertainty, and even livelihoods. How concerning is this to us as a country, and how well are we positioned to weather the storm and mitigate this impact?
Well, generally, we are a member of the global community. So, when it comes about talk about climate change has no geographical boundary. It goes around. So, what affects one affects all. That's the story of climate change, the climate impact, and the resilience has to be built across board. The impact of climate change, the global impact, but action has to be local actions. So just like I mentioned, the climate issues is a global issue, and we are a member of the global community, like I mentioned earlier. And yes, the action has to be local action. And local actions, that means Nigeria, as a member of the global community, we must have our local action to build up to the aggregate, the global aggregate. Local action give the global aggregate to mitigate the climate impact. And that's where our policy framework comes in, which must be in line with what the global treaties and global actions are. It has to be a sequence, all right? We have to build a sequence, is a growth, and within a particular space of time. So this action has to be aggregated together.
Right.
And that is why it's very, very important that we act. Otherwise, by the time can I go ahead, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. So by the time we continue our action, if we fail to act within our own environment, within our own ecosystem, if we fail to act, the impact will continue to affect us. While others are acting, it's just like we are fixing a jigsaw. The moment you have a kind of a gap within a nation that is not complying with that jigsaw, the impact will be on that nation. By the time the other sharp edges are rubbing, other nations are moving forward, we will be lacking. There are a lot of benefits when it comes to climate action and the climate programs that is going on globally. And it's a cross-subsidy action. And for those who are going to have the impact, those who are on the side of the impact are going to feel it more. And those who are producers, those who are the main polluting nation, they are providing resources to enable the deprived nations to be able to move forward, to be able to match up, so that while those who are polluting, those of you who are not polluting heavily like the polluting nation, you have to build in the resilience that will make sure that what they are doing over there does not really affect you much. So that's the essence of global treaty and the global line of action.
All right, Honorable Commissioner. So, I mean, I hear all of the things you've said. So, what level of collaborations are required between the federal states, the private sector, to effectively address the challenges of climate change? And what are some of the specific areas that you think such collaboration should be more concentrated on?
Yes, when we talk about this collaboration, it's institutional and it has to be arranged. And when we look at the players in this whole play of collaboration, the national government, which in the global space, the federal government is recognized as a party, all right, and it's only locally we say the national government. So, as a party of interest, the national government sits on top of all the policy directions. Now, the states are the subnationals that contributes. The states are the implementing organs for most of these national policies, because what makes up the nation is the aggregate of the states. So it is what all the states are doing that the nation can say that this is exactly what we are doing as a nation, Nigeria. So whatever you do at the top there must be effective collaboration with the state. It must cascade down to the state. And government sits at the point of policy formulation, policy regulations, and framework for implementation of the policy and regulation. That is why it's very, very important that knowledge sharing is very, very important between the national government and the state government. Your resilience starts from knowledge sharing and the data collection, because whatever you are doing, you have to measure your progression. Now, talking about the private sector will follow the policy direction. And the policy direction have to look at the interest of the private sector, because the private sector is the engine room for the economy. That is what drives the economy. So when you talk about the sustainability, which you have to build in your resilience, you have to think about the social issues, which is about the people. Okay, and that means you have the CBOs, the NGOs, the CBOs, all these ones represent the people, and then you have the private sector, which represents mainly the economic engine room. So the private sector must be built in to be able to align with the policy and the resilient strategy. Now, the environmental component, government is the custodian of the environment. Environment management is a major issue when it comes to social contract.
We don't have your audio anymore, Mr. Ola Oresanya. We do not have your audio. If you could just repeat what you've said. Okay, now we can hear you.
All right. I'm sorry. I don't know where I stopped, but I'll take it back again. I'm sorry for the network.
That's
it's
fine.
One of those things. We have to build the resilience in the network too.
Right.
Anyway.
Absolutely.
All right. So all I just said is that there's a structure, there's a framework that aligns both the government and the people and the private sector in this whole arrangement. And the people are the social arm of all this resilience action. All right. And the people are represented most times when we want to talk about this arrangement. The people are represented by the CBO, by the NGOs and the CBOs. They come for negotiation for the people interest. Now, the private sector is the engine room for the economy. The private sector interest will be factoring in the policy formulation to ensure that whatever we are deciding, whatever we are planning, whatever we are going to do, the private sector interest is factored in. When the private sector is thriving, that's when the nation can survive on its own. Okay. Now, the government is the custodian of the custodian of the social contract when it comes to managing of the environment. So the government itself manages the environment in the interest of all. So the government sits on top of that, and the local government, the state government, and the national government, everybody must align with the interest on environment. Environment interest must be factoring in whatever you are doing as a government. So this is where it's so critical that all these arms must have must have a role, critical role, well aligned in the regulatory framework for climate change resilience. And everybody must work in line with the tasks that have been clearly defined for all parties, and you must deliver on those you must deliver on your task within a particular framework. And I think that's exactly what the Office National Council of Climate Change is all about, to ensure that all the agents, all the arms are built into this resilience program for the National Resilience Program.
Right, and speaking on the role of the government, let's bring it to Ogun State, which is where you represent. It's become an annual occurrence when water is released from Oyo Dam, which is managed by the Osun River Basin Development Authority. Places like, Arepo, Isheri, Long Bridge, amongst others, are always flooded, and residents are vacating such places and losing properties to flood. What is the state government doing to curtail this?
Well, when we look at the flood within the flood issue, talking about resilience, climate resilience, flood is one of the key impact areas where we know that if you're not doing the right thing, when you have a change in the global temperature, or you have the ice melting and you have the rise in sea level, and when you have the rise in sea level, the next thing is flooding. You have a restriction of inflow of fresh water into the lagoons. And when you have a high precipitation, talking about unusual rainfall, weather pattern will change, and then you have a high precipitation, you can have flooding. Now, talking about the flooding pattern in Ogun State, localizing it, just like you said, in Ogun State, yes, we have a two type of flood in the Ogun State, which follows also the two seasons of rainfall that we have in Ogun State. The initial flood that we have in Ogun State runs from the month of March till probably month of July. July is when we have the potentials for heavy flooding, and this flooding comes as a main runoff, we call the flash flooding. Okay, it's a storm water runoff. We call it the flash flooding, and this is as a result of high precipitation and running from uphill, downhill, and the volume of water that runs within the hydraulic network, they are likely to overflow the hydraulic network because of high precipitation. Now, when we now go to the southern part of the city, of the state, especially the area that borders the Ogun State area, the Lagos State area, the Isheri area that I just mentioned. Now, this area opens up the Ogun River into the lagoon, into Lagos Lagoon. And towards the second season of rainfall starts around September and ends in November. This kind of rainfall, yes, is a continuous, not more days of rainfall that come, but the soil around that time is already saturated. Ogun River itself is already collecting water from upstream, or the entire nation coming from the North Africa and the northern part of Nigeria. Ogun River is already saturated. Now, by the time you now get to the lagoon, that is where the climate resilience comes in. Because of climate change, the tidal fluctuation these days is getting higher. In the 40, 50, 30 years ago, the level of, can I go ahead, please?
Please go ahead, sir.
All right. The level of water in the tidal fluctuation in the time past, before now, we go to probably average of about 2 meters during the month of September. But these days, we now have the tidal flow going to as much as about 3 to 4 meters during the month of September, October. During this period, the water coming from Ogun River will not be able to enter the lagoon. You have to have the water get detained for a while during that period. And that is the period where you now have a backflow or reticulating itself within the Isheri area. That Isheri area will always have, that's why we call that place wetland, because it's a conservation zone, but we have encroached on it. We have built on that conservation zone. We're supposed to retain the water reticulation when you have the high tide. now you can stay in that area if you have elevated yourself above the tidal fluctuation. But when our people are going to build that area, nobody took into cognizance the tidal fluctuation. So people build below the tidal fluctuation, and that's why we're going to have flooding over there. So what we are now doing to mitigate that right now is to ensure that we elevate the road and allow our people also to elevate their buildings to be able to habit that place. While we dredge the Ogun River itself, which has commenced, we were creating new tributaries for Ogun River. We are dredging the Ogun River itself in conjunction with the Ogun River Basin Development Authority to ensure that the water itself will have more area to go to by the time you have this tidal fluctuation. But when you talk about climate resilience, that's exactly one critical example where you now have, because of the climate change, all right, the water level is already rising high, the sea level rise is already affecting that area.
Allow me to just ask you this question, Honorable Commissioner. You did mention that you're beginning work currently, dredging those roads and all of that. How long is that going to take?
Well, with the Ogun River Basin Authority, yes, the dredging, I think in a matter of 2-3 months, the dredging should be completed. But for the new tributaries we have to open for Ogun River, I think that would take about 24 months. But we are starting any moment from now to open new channels where the Ogun River can dissipate the energy, the water energy coming in, so that the water, the flood can go through some other channels. So that one will go for a longer time. But the dredging should be completed in a few months' time.
All right, so let's talk about the manufacturing plants that have been shut in recent times for flouting environmental law and directives. While the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, they're lamenting loss of man-hour, wasted raw materials as a result of this closure, I'm going to ask you, aren't there better ways of handling this to avoid the outright closure of this firm?
Well, it's a two-way thing now. Many of the manufacturers who probably, before they shut you down, they must have shown a bit of recalcitrant nature to regulatory control. We just don't shut down an industry. It's the last line of action, and it's not desirable. It's not the palatable news that we want to share, that we've shut down industry, we've shut down this one. It's the marketing when it comes to investment. It's not a good thing. It's a demarketing thing. So we're very quiet about it. But then when we can't help it, when we have to lay example that, look, conform with the regulations otherwise, because we like I said, we're the custodian of the environment. We have to protect the environment in the interest of the people. We have to make sure it's all about sustainable development. The industries must survive. Our people too must stay alive. So if your activity as an industry is injurious to the life of the people, we have a responsibility, for God's sake. The first thing we do is to call the industry to the table, discuss what the problems are, then we advise on what to do, then we give a timeline to do this action. But by the time we see that you are not even taking action in that direction, we'll give you a warning, okay? And the next thing will be to give you a stop work order. We say, look, stop production and make sure you do the right thing. But by the time the company is proving they are not going to obey the law, then the next thing we'll do is that we'll show you that, look, we have to shut down the industry because your continuous existence is going to destroy the life of the people. So, and that's just it. So it is, and this is already helping us a lot. Many of the industries are now complying because they know that, look, there are consequences for misbehavior. All right. So those things are just the same message that there are consequences for misbehavior. It's not about maximizing profit. It's all about responsible production. And that's exactly what we're promoting there.
All about responsible production. So let's talk about the SDG goals. Goal 13 focuses on climate action as regards the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and mitigation of negative effects of climate change. How far has Ogun State actually gone in terms of compliance with this Goal 13 under the SDGs?
Yes, if you look at Ogun State, we're so concerned with we look at the SDG goals honestly as our Bible when it comes to management, and it's been a very very useful tool to guide us in our policy directions, in measuring even what we're doing. SDG goal 13, then goal 7, goal 6, goal 7, goal 8. We look at all these responsible production because we are highly industrialized states in Ogun State, and we are the most industrialized, if I may. If by the last data from Nigeria Bureau of Statistics is anything to go by, is the most industrialized nation in Nigeria today. So that tells you our vulnerability for gaseous emission, and most of these gaseous emissions are greenhouse gases, talking about methane, talking about carbon dioxide, talking about carbon monoxide and the NOx gases. These gases are very, very dangerous. Talking about chlorofluorocarbon, the CFCs, those are greenhouse gases that are associated with high industrialization and even waste management. And we also we have high energy footage when it comes to cement industry. We are the most of the almost we are the non oil extractive industry in Nigeria. Ogun State has the highest destination for the, because all the industries, all the cement industry in Nigeria are right here in Ogun State. So our footage, our carbon footage is very, very high when it comes to production. And also talking about agro, is an agrarian economy that we have here. Most of agro processing industries are here in Ogun State. So when it comes to contribution to carbon footage and greenhouse gases in Nigeria, Ogun State is a place to focus on. And that's why we don't joke with the ecosystem and the eco-balancing in Ogun State. So what we have been doing right now is to make sure that we reduce our methane production, and that we are doing into decarbonization program for cement industries. We are working seriously with all the cement industry, with Lafarge, with Dangote, with the Bois industry. All these industries are right there in Ogun State. So most of the kiln of these industries are now going to be using the refuse generated in Ogun State to fire their kiln. These refuse are going to be converted into what we call the RDF, refuse derived fuel. We are creating what we call the material recovery facilities, MRFs, in about the 3 senatorial districts of the state. And this is a business on its own. And this will be supplying, turn the refuse into RDF. We may even be bringing refuse from Lagos into this facility, because the 3,000 metric tons we generate on a daily basis will not meet up with the demand of these industries to fire their kiln. So we may be combining the waste from Lagos with the waste from the state to produce these RDFs that will be supplying these cement industries. And this will reduce the methane that can come from a landfill site itself and reduce the fossil fuel footage of these cement industries. That's one critical area where we are doing that. Now, again, when we look at our transportation system in Ogun State, all the one-stroke engine, the Okada and the Marwa thing, we're already giving a disincentive for them. We are taking them into electric bikes. In about 1 or 2 weeks now, we are giving out about 1,000 electric bikes to the Okada riders, so that we take off all the smoky bikes off our road. And one critical thing we are doing in that one is that if you are still using the Okada in Ogun State, you'll be paying emission charges because you are polluting the environment. So we allow them to migrate into using the electric bike. That is one critical area we are doing also. That when we look at also our buses, our public transportation system in Ogun State right now, all the government buses are on CNG. We're using clean gas. Okay, clean fuel is what we're using. All of them are already on the CNG. That's the compressed natural gas. And most of the industries in Ogun State right now, we are doing what we call the emission assessment in Ogun State to look at our emission footage. And as many of them that are migrating to clean fuel using CNG or LPGs, reducing their carbon footprint, because the more you pollute in Ogun State right now, the more you pay. And so we are doing what we call the stack emission analysis survey to see that if your gas, if your CNG, your greenhouse gas is not reduced on an annual basis, then you are likely to pay the consequences for that. You pay a fine for that.
Thank you so much, Honorable Commissioner, for really, just throwing more light on that conversation for us. I would like you to please just shed more light, because we don't have so much time anymore. If you could just shed some light on the timelines for the investment when it comes to this waste to wealth and transforming waste to wealth? What are some of the timelines that you have in place?
Well, we're closing on the financial closure right now. We're moved. We're working with McKinsey. We are working with Manufacture Africa, and we're working with the National Sovereign Fund, and we've done all the preliminaries investigations, and we're closing up on our financials right now, and we are going to go to the market with our RFP, and we are going to launch the RFP any moment from now, so that investors can now come in, and we have an idea about the funding, and this is going to be in collaboration. This is going to be a project that will be in collaboration with the British government, with the state government, and with the National Sovereign Investment. And so, like I said, let's look at that the next 24 months. We should be able to go off ground.
All right, 24 months. So Nigeria still currently ranks top globally as a country unable to actually end open defecation. And this, we know, is a major health challenge to the citizens. What's Ogun State doing about this?
Well, lucky enough, Ogun State is one of the states that have been rewarded for one of our local governments, anyway, let me put it. Ikane local government, for example, has been rewarded by the UNICEF as the open defecation free local government in Nigeria. So that tells you that what did we do there to get to that level? Yes, all we did was to work with the locals, with the communities, and ensure that all the houses in those areas, they have toilets in their houses. So, and we make sure that public toilets are being built, and all the houses in the state must have toilets. So we're scaling up what we did in the Kenya local government in all other local governments in the state. Right now, I'm sure about 4 other local governments in the state will be ready to be certified as open defecation free. But the areas where we have a problem right now are localized right now in the state, just about 2 local governments. That's Obafemi Owode, that's the Kara area, where you have people who are mainly non-indigent, where we have settlers who probably don't have this toilet, and who probably have this habit. For example, in the Kara area, we have about 6 public toilets there, major public toilets. And by the way, those toilets are SDG compliance, because we don't run them with the public electricity. Is the focal matters that we use to generate electricity in those toilets. Anytime you drive past, just drive in and check this thing yourself. It will amaze you. We are generating electricity from these toilets, from the bioreactors. So most of all these are foreign brothers and sisters. They are just used to doing their thing openly, and it's been very terrible. We have to really correct them. So we have about 3 local governments of the state that are affected by these foreign settlers, mainly, who are still having these terrible habits of doing their thing openly. And we are not relenting to make sure that we eliminate this by doing serious enforcement. But I can assure you, this year we're going to have about additional 4 local governments that will be certified as open defecation free. And that will take us gradually towards having a state that will be someday down the line that we can say Ogun State can be certified as a state that has the free open defecation. So it's all a matter of time, and we're going to get there. But we are making progress gradually, and we are happy we are progressing in that line.